So, hello everyone. Welcome again to another fortnightly lunchtime virtual meetup. Today's topic is all about motivation because we recognise that, particularly in Melbourne, if you're a Melburnian, you may have felt that in recent times with level 3 restrictions being brought back in again, that it might be impacting on your motivation or just your general well-being in a sense of how you feel about things. And so we felt that it might be a good time to revisit a topic that we kind of touched on really early on in this series about motivation and talking about how it impacts on you and what you can do to work with that lack of motivation should it arise. So things we talk about today, what is a lack of motivation? How does it impact on you? Strategies to deal with motivation, strategies around self-reflection. I'll be really curious if anyone wants to join in at any point to talk about what works for you or what you notice about this, and any questions at the end as well. So, firstly, what is a lack of motivation? How does it impact on you? What do you experience that creates that feeling of a lack of motivation? For many people, it's that feeling of, could be overwhelm or frustration. You could be feeling, I don't know about you, but there's been times when I've sat there watching cat videos when I know I really should be focusing on, building a presentation or something on those lines. And notice that it's not a binary feeling either. When I say that, I don't mean that, it's not like you're either motivated or not motivated. Sometimes it could be a spectrum where you feel like it's kind of sliding a little bit, and sometimes you feel like you're being a little bit more productive than other times. And consider for a moment what it stops you from doing. What is the things that you tell yourself when you're feeling a lack of motivation? Is it that you can't be bothered or that this is too hard? What is the behavior that you do? Do you put it off until tomorrow? It's too cold to get up and therefore I can't be bothered doing that hour of exercise from home that I thought I should do. Is it playing the victim as well? Is it being apathetic about what you're meant to be doing or easily distracted, like cat videos? I think cat videos are going to feature quite heavily today. I just get that sense that it might happen. The other thing to keep in mind is that we all experience a lack of motivation sometimes. And I think this is a starting point where, we are as human beings going to have days where we feel on top of things and other days where it's going to be a bit more of a struggle. And I think that starting point is to be able to recognize that feeling. And sometimes it might mean giving yourself permission to have a day off and to be able to rest up and to, allow that feeling just to be there and know that it's going to pass. I guess the challenge there is that if you do find that you're experiencing this lack of motivation and it's going on for an extended period of time and really beginning to eat into that time that you could be doing something productive and meaningful, that's when it's really up to you to determine what you need to do about that. So, why do you lack motivation? What are the key things that cause a lack of motivation to go on? The first one is an avoidance of discomfort. And that is that you might be feeling some emotional feeling that you just don't want to feel, including things like boredom, frustration. I'm sure we've all been in particular jobs where you can feel incredibly bored or unfulfilled, and that can cause a lack of motivation as well. I've watched the news recently and I see that they've got airline people acting as guards in some of the quarantine places, and their role is basically to sit there and make sure people don't leave the rooms. Could you imagine anything more boring in your day?
Especially when they've been so active and interactive before. I think that's also the challenge. Yeah.
I think most of us recognize that we want jobs and work that keeps us engaged and makes us feel like we're doing something productive. And so sometimes an avoidance of discomfort, those feelings that we don't want to feel, it could cause a lack of motivation. There could be self-doubt as well when you think you can't do a particular task. I'm sure we've all had an experience where we've been asked to do something, we've kind of agreed and thought, crap, do I know actually how to do this? Do I really know how to put together that spreadsheet report that person wants? Or do I really know how to do that creative project that person's asked for? There could be overwhelm as well. We're in a really crazy world right now. Some of you may have noticed. We have coronavirus. We have recession. We have a whole range of things that seem to, unfortunately we escaped the killer hornets that the US had. We didn't get them, touch wood. But it feels like, each week you turn on the news and there's something new that's, concerning or confronting or frightening even, that may cause anxiety. And that overwhelm can stop us sometimes from doing things because it just feels like things are all a bit too hard. There's a lack of commitment to the goal. Sometimes we have lost the ability to tap into why we're doing something or what's important about it or what is we get out of it. And that can cause us to feel like there's a lack of motivation too. And lastly, just a touch on mental health issues. Quite often a lack of motivation can sometimes be a symptom of depression or anxiety. And as I mentioned before, it's important not to assume that if you're lacking motivation, that it's a mental health issue. It could just simply be that you're feeling flat, overwhelmed, and if the other things we've just discussed. If you do find, though, that this is something that is being repeated over a period of time, then make sure you do have the opportunity to sit down and talk to someone about it, whether it be a good friend that you trust or perhaps a service out there that will be able to provide you with some support.
And just on that, I mean, I have been seeing in the news that, everybody is the mental health issues is on the rise, and they are putting more people on the telephones and they're putting more money and more resources into it, even the government. So yeah, it's super important and it is available there. And I think that is the really important point, that somebody is at the end of the phone, whether professionally or whether personally through friends and family.
Absolutely. There are online telephone support services out there. You can go to your GP and talk to him about perhaps getting a mental health plan as well, which will allow you to be able to go and see a psychologist at a more affordable rate as well. So there are things to consider. Let's have a bit of a chat about strategies to deal with motivation. So if you're experiencing a lack of motivation, we're going to cover a few simple strategies that might work. Now, I do say might work. It's important to recognize that there's no one-size-fits-all strategy that works for everybody. If there was, that would be the sole thing you would need to do. But I would encourage you to perhaps experiment with these if you are feeling, or in those moments where you do feel a lack of motivation, and see if some of these work. Shall we alternate on these, Vanessa? What would you like to do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's alternate. You can do the first one, Lawrence.
Cool. Okay.
Because there's a few.
So the act as if frame. This is a really simple one. Quite often when we fool ourselves into acting as if we already have that thing, it can sometimes be the jump start that we need to get into that motivation. So as I've got there, ask yourself, what would I be doing right now if I felt motivated? What would you be wearing? How would you be thinking? What actions would you be taking? And then if you do those things, it can sometimes fool the mind into thinking that, this is what we're doing, and get into it. It sounds crazy, I know, but it actually does work. When people start to act as if they already have that thing, it kind of just brings that thing into their focus, into what they're doing. And what we focus on is essentially what we get.
Yeah. And then work out what is within your control. So sometimes we get very overwhelmed and even anxious from trying to control what is outside of our control. And what is within your control that you can do right now to move one step forward. This requires, owning up to it as well, and actually looking at what you may be frustrated with. Is it in your control? Great, do something about it. If it's not in your control, then there's nothing you can do about it. So it's really ascertaining what you can do something about and what you can't do something about.
I want you guys to consider this as well, especially anyone who's watching this that may experience some form of anxiety over time. The only thing that actually is within your control are your own thoughts and behavior. Everything that is outside of that is completely outside of your control. That includes what your partner wishes to do, or what your friends wish to do, what your employer wishes to do, what coronavirus wishes to do, what the recession wishes to do. All those things are outside of your control. And there is a paradox around control, which is the more that you try to control what is outside of your control, the more out of control you get. So the starting point is often to accept that, you know, these things are outside of your control. And then to start to think, well, what is it that's within my control to be able to deal with this? The reality is this: we're all going to have really crappy days, right? I think we can all agree to that. The difference is that you can have a crappy day and you can decide on that crappy day you're going to try to see the best that you can about it and do the best that you can in it and make it not so bad. Or you can just think it's really crap and have an even more crappier day. That choice is yours. That's what's within your power. So I think it's really important to be able to recognize that what is within your control is the way that you are going to engage and be in that day.
Great.
You want to make a plan as well? This
is one of my favorites.
So you, Vanessa.
Yeah, it is. It really is important to make a plan for the day, especially when, you know, I'm hearing from some people that days are just merging into others, and some people don't know which day of the week it is. So it's really important to reintroduce a structure and reintroduce a structure into your day. What is going to make your time meaningful for you? And make specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic times allocated to those things. So if you are going to go for a walk, you don't have to put an hour down there. You can just put half an hour. And, you know, we're going to talk about some tips later on, but, you know, put realistic times next to things. You know, lunch is not going to take 10 minutes. It is going to take a little bit more than that. Making phone calls is not going to take 1 or 2 minutes. It is going to take more than that. So just focus on measurable and realistic times. And it's great to have that checklist as well, you know, because then you'll see that you've actually achieved stuff during the day. If you have a little list, you can tick it off or move it around. But at least at the end of the day, you'll be able to sit back and say, I've actually achieved something today.
Mm. I think also if you're not working at the moment, it's too easy to get caught up in that culture of binge watching Netflix, eating lots of chocolate, going to bed late, and getting up in the morning when you feel like it. And I think as human beings, we actually really need that kind of structure to our day to help make sure there's a sense of routine and normality. You know, that routine and normality becomes quite predictable, and we like predictable things because they get us predictable results. So I think, you know, even just planning out your day, if you aren't currently working, to think, well, what activities do I need to do about either finding more work or, you know, upskilling in something that's going to be really meaningful for me.
Yeah. I also think it's important to time how much time we spend on social media, especially if there is no set guides during a day, or you don't have to specifically do something in a certain time, you know, and you do, there's nothing wrong with social media. I just don't think being on it for hours every day helps our mental health and well-being. So if you are going to go onto social media, time it for half an hour or time it for 1 hour and then get off. Yeah. Lawrence, the time has gone off. You need to get off.
Comedy class. Champagne really comedy right there.
It really does help timing how long you're on social media for.
Yeah, we are literally the Laurel and Hardy of recruitment, aren't we? 10-minute rule. This is another mind hack. You could, if there's an activity that you're putting off doing. I had this weekend with my tax. I did this exact thing on this weekend with my tax. If there's something you're putting off doing, start it and give yourself permission to quit after 10 minutes if you want to. Quite often what happens is that you start and then you realize that it's just easier to keep going and you get the job done. Again, it's a mind, you know, the mind is a strange thing. It tries to make meaning out of everything, and it'll try to fool you at any given moment, and it'll tell you a whole lot of crap to stop you from doing stuff. Sometimes when you just work around it, it's amazing what can happen. So, which leads us perfectly to the next one. I won't ask for a show of hands, and this kind of comes back to the anxiety one again. But, you know, how many of you have self-talk that can sometimes hold you back from doing things or procrastinating? I can see gentle nodding of heads there from people that might get that. Great. The key thing to remember is that, as I said before, our mind likes to make meaning of things. Our mind likes to tell us stuff that isn't necessarily true, but it's doing it because it's thinking it might be able to protect you or keep you safe. And it's doing what it's always known. The key thing, though, is to be able to become an observer of our thoughts, to be able to look at our thoughts and recognize that those thoughts are actually just thoughts. Quite often what happens is that we tell ourselves something, and because we trust ourselves, we completely believe it like it's real. And so what I'm going to do right now is perhaps show you guys a couple of different short exercises that you can do to help step away from those thoughts, help not get tangled up in them so much. So you can either play along with this or you can just watch. It's absolutely fine. But for those that are interested in playing along, there's a few different ways that you get thoughts, right? The first one might be that you tell yourself something. You hear it in your own head, whether it's been your voice or the voice of someone else. Is that what some people experience?
Yeah, I hear my own voice.
Great. Okay. So for those who do want to play along, I want you to get something that you might tell yourself that you hold yourself back from. Whether it be, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'm not good at this, or how will I ever be able to do this? And I just want you to be able to get a sense of telling yourself that. And after a while of getting a sense of telling yourself that, I wonder now if you can change that voice so that it's still telling you the same thing, but I wonder if it could be told to you by Daffy Duck or Peter Griffin from Family Guy, or I don't know, think of someone else who is just ridiculous and have them telling you that. And notice how that kind of shifts that feeling that it gets from it. Or even more so, I wonder if you can, if you perhaps seen that some of creatives here, you probably be more visually inclined. And maybe there's a visual that you get in your head. So if you were to imagine that visual and then imagine in your own mind being able to push that visual back, and often it'll be often it'll be in color. So imagine it being black and white. And often it might be really close when you imagine it perceptually around you. So imagine pushing it right back into the distance so that it's almost a pinpoint at the horizon. And if it's moving, imagine it becoming really still. This is something that's referred to as submodality. So being able to play with these aspects of how we encode an image in our mind can sometimes take the sting out of it as well. One last activity is, and this is if you're perhaps feeling something, or if you're noticing a thought, you can easily say something like, if you're having a thought like, I'm not good at this, for instance, you could easily do something like saying, oh, I notice that I'm having that thought, I'm not good at this. And if you were to do this exercise now, you probably notice that as you start to say those things about noticing it and not being in it, the sting from it is less. It takes it away a bit more. So hopefully you find those exercises kind of useful. And in fact, I might type them up this week so people can refer back to them. Hopefully you're not looking at me and going, oh dear Lord, won't he just shut up about this? But maybe that's my own inner voice telling me that right now. Maybe
no, I'm just thinking of Daffy Duck instead of the voice in my head, and I find it quite funny. So
it's also funny is when you can also sing, like if you have a thought and sing it to the tune of Happy Birthday. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. It takes the sting out of it. It's playing with it in a different way. Yeah. If you're going to scare yourself with your thinking, you might as well use that same imaginative power to deal with it as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Self-care and self-compassion. So this is the same sort of thing. If you're noticing that you're beating yourself up or feeling that you're being too slack or whatever, imagine that you are your own best friend. What advice would you give your best friend on this who had the same problem? And what stops you from being able to take that on yourself? Go to the next page. Oh, this is a very Vanessa one too. I can shut up now.
Yeah. This is also one of my favorites. The body is made to move. So when you're scheduling in what you need to do for the day, also schedule in time to go for a walk or some yoga. And, when we're doing exercise, we release good endorphins. And as a result, when you're taking care of yourself and of your body, your mind will follow. And as I've said before, don't think that you have to exercise for a whole hour, or even half an hour seems like a big chunk. Why can't it just be 15-minute intervals 3 or 4 times a day? I'm exactly the same. I can't schedule in a whole hour to go for a walk, but if I do smaller 15 or 30 minutes ones, then it's much more enjoyable. So make sure that you schedule that in every day. It is super duper important.
Acceptance of what you're feeling now, this kind of comes back to where we started. You know, we are going to have crappy days, and it's human to respond to it in the way that we do. So sometimes it's just about allowing us to have that acceptance that this is what it is, but also an understanding that this is going to pass as well. You know, we're not always going to have a pandemic. We're not always going to have a recession. At some point, this will turn. At some point, things are going to get better. At some point, there's still going to be lots of opportunity. So it's about being able to tap into that feeling of hope and resilience, and know that with persistence, we are going to be able to get there.
Yeah. I also think another point, which I'm not sure if this is now or we've said it before, but, you know, some people that do have a job and that are working and they are exhausted and they're still having all these feelings, feel as if they can't, not complain, but they can't voice they're going through stress as well, because they're lucky. They do have a job and they are working. But, you know, I hate saying this, but we are all in this together. And even if somebody is working and is doing okay, you can still feel all of this stress. You can still have little motivation. You know, all those outside messages that are coming into us affect us if we have a job or if we don't have a job, or if we're in a good position or not a good position. So it's also important to, if you are doing okay as seen on the outside, but you're not on the inside, to still recognize that and perhaps ask for help from friends, family, or from helplines. So I just wanted to put that in.
Yeah, that's really good points as well. Everyone's dealing with this in very different ways. You don't have to be necessarily in the most underprivileged category in order to be worthy of the most stress. We all experience it. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And tomorrow's up to you. What do you want tomorrow to be? And this is something I often talk to people when I'm working with them as well, is that if I was to get a video camera and to videotape you going through your day when you're not being motivated, would you be happy for me to share that video with the world? Would you be happy for other people to see that video? And if the answer is no, then ask yourself, what is it that I'm not doing then? What is it that's not happening that is going to make the difference here? Now, what behaviors do I need to have in order to show up? You know, what is it that's going to engage me so I feel like I'm doing something that's got meaning and purpose behind it? How do I structure my day to make sure that I get through those things that I need to do and not have them put by the wayside in favor of enormous amounts of chocolate, which, you know, Cadbury's $2.50 a block at Woolworths at the moment, just saying quietly, and a whole lot of Netflix. You know, it's about only, again, coming back to that point, the only person that you can have full control over is yourself. So what is it that you want out of this time that you're going to look back on and go, that was actually a really good use of my time? Because we're all capable of that right now.
Yeah.
What's next? Self-reflection. Did you want to do
these
this?
are all great, Lawrence. How should we do these ones?
Well, look, how about we just ask these questions now? People don't have to chime in. It's just a bit of self-reflection. Think at the moment about, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated do you feel right now? You know, some people watching this might be an absolute 10. You know, they're being diligent, tuning into these virtual catch-ups every fortnight, which we thank you for. You know, you're on top of going out there and either looking for work or doing the work that you need to do. You might be doing some upskilling. You might be keeping on top of your health and your fitness. All these things are contributing towards that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel right now? And if it isn't a 10, if it's lower than that, what would need to happen for me to take it up just one place? You know, if it's a 7, what would need to happen for you to feel that you've gone to an 8? So it's just a small step. We're not asking for a big, massive leap, because that will create overwhelm. But what is it that can be one little step up that is going to have you feel that you're stepping it up a little bit more? What would you be doing? What would you be saying to yourself to motivate yourself? What's that talk that you're going to tell yourself to get there? What is it within my control right now to be able to achieve it? Another thing which I didn't put in this, but is often quite good here, is piggybacking on other habits. So if you have other habits going on, for instance, perhaps you look at your morning and you have a particular set routine in which you do something. If you were to piggyback a new behavior in amongst those, you're more likely to succeed with it. This is kind of research from Atomic Habits by James Clear. Fantastic book for those interested in reading it. And what would I get out of achieving this? What's the purpose of it? Because if it hasn't got a purpose, you're not going to be interested in doing it.
Yeah.
So what's the actual thing that you are getting out of this? And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how realistic is it that you'll actually do this? Because I can tell you now, if it's a 5 or less, then you've jumped up too big. You need to make that step smaller. Mm. It needs to be realistic, and it needs to be something that you can honestly say, yeah, I think I can do that, no matter how small that step is. Mm. So, and if you do these, then it helps to be able to assess where you're at with your motivation levels at the moment, and to be able to think about what it is that you can do that's meaningful with your time and help you to step towards that.
Yeah. And maybe you could, take down this list or take a screen grab and perhaps really reflect on it after the webinar, and then have a look at it again in 2 weeks' time and perhaps 1 month's time. We know this, everything that's surrounding us at the moment is not going to finish next week or next month. So it's important to look on this and self-reflect on the self-reflection. Mm-hmm. Would that be right, Lawrence?
Yeah, absolutely. It's also important to note that some of you might be watching this right now and think, this isn't valuable to me right now. And that's absolutely fine. There may be a point sometime in the future where this might actually be of value to you, in which case, I hope that you come back to this and explore some of this. But, some of you might be watching and thinking, this is interesting, but not really relevant to me right now. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
What's next? We're all different. What have you found that works? And I guess this is kind of me opening it up to people for their thoughts, if they have got any thoughts on the topic of motivation. Are you motivated at the moment? And if you are, what is it that's driving that motivation for you? What do you find works for you right now? So I've got someone popping up here.
Sylvian's got a screenshot, but I think that might be our
is that the you did the screen grab of the things. Thanks for that. I can always upload the slides afterwards as well. But
yeah. But I'll give you an example of 2 things that I did, going back to what we had discussed. In regards to social media, I was finding that I was spending more time on social media because I didn't have set things to do. So I actually did set myself that timer, half an hour on social media once a day. And it really, really works for me. And then I'm more productive in other areas. Mm. The other thing that I wanted to achieve was to learn something new, but I couldn't afford to go to a course, or can't physically go to a course. So I actually bought a book, and on the weekends, I don't read it during the week, but on the weekends, again, I set a timer and schedule it as part of my day to actually go through and read for an hour that book. And I only do it for an hour each time and each day, so that the information is actually allowed to sink in. I mean, like most of you, I could probably read through a whole book in one day, but the information is not going to sink in. Mm-hmm. So for me, I guess the 2 main things were scheduling something in that was new, and also timing myself on social media, which I don't think is hugely beneficial, but I still like it. So yeah, time myself on social media. So that's definitely worked for me. And we didn't just put it in the slides because we thought it would be great. It's actually something I'm doing.
Mm. Jane says a daily plan really works. Also noting achievements, even doing the laundry. Yeah. Helps keep a sense that you are getting things done and moving forward. You know what? I know this actual whole webinar has been verging very much on therapy. But from a therapy context, if we're working with someone who has depression, for instance, sometimes you need to focus on the smallest of achievements to make them realize that they are, getting up in a day and showing up in some way. And yeah, you're right. Noting the achievements that you do. I have a to-do list each day. Do I get through all of it? No, absolutely not. But I do feel a sense of pride when I am able to tick off the most important things that I need to get done.
And also, if you don't get them done on that day, you move it to the next day, and then, you've got half a list of things to do the next day and a reason to get them done.
Yeah. I think it's also important to be aware of your energy levels too. At the start of this month, my energy levels were really low. I really felt it. My energy levels were just flat, and I found it really hard to achieve everything I needed to achieve. And that's where I think self-care is really important, being able to recognize when you are going through those periods, making sure you get rest and eating properly. Make sure if you get fruit and nut chocolate so that you do get the important healthy stuff.
Lawrence.
If you're going to buy chocolate. But yeah, no, self-care is really important, and knowing how to take care of yourself during those periods where you do feel a bit flat so that you can recharge and get back into it. I've been like a ball of energy the last week and a half. It's been ridiculous.
And taking those small steps, Lawrence touched on this as well. Don't go from doing nothing in a certain area to trying to achieve so much. You'll just get frustrated because you probably won't achieve a big step in a very short amount of time. So I think the thing is to take small steps and introduce things slowly or in smaller chunks of time, so that you, do feel that you've actually achieved something.
I think especially in this current environment where many people are looking for work, if you're in that situation where you are looking for work, having a bit of a plan about what you're going to be doing over a period of 2 weeks might be a good thing to do, instead of trying to sit there and think, oh my Lord, I have to do my CV and I have to do my folio again. I have to get it up online. Then I have to make sure that I research who the key people are. Break down what each step is and plot it out so that you can have a bit of a plan happening and be able to work through it at a pace that is actually going to be realistic and achievable with goals set in it. Jane says, another popular one in my house. If too busy to get to the park, I try to just do a 10-minute walk around the block. Even multiple short walks between tasks really help. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this too, Jane. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. Do it in smaller chunks and you will actually see that you can achieve more than what you set out to do.
What I was doing initially, do you remember, Vanessa, when if I go upstairs and put the kettle on, from the moment I turn the kettle on, I would walk around my lounge room, and I got like around 300 to 500 steps in the time it would take to boil the kettle.
You did.
So
you did.
Little things like that,
Yeah.
Tammy, yes, walking is mandatory every day for me now. Talking to friends, partners, family really helped me the other day. I had unhelpful thoughts brewing up for a while, and once I talked about it, I realized how hard I was being on myself. Yeah, and that comes back to great work for being able to recognize that you were talking badly to yourself or talking unhelpfully to yourself, and definitely keep chatting to your friends and think a bit about what advice you would give a close friend that you loved in a similar situation, and see if you can apply it to yourself as well.
Yeah, I've from another point of view, I actually do live on my own. And my brother or his wife, each one of them or either one of them will call me every 2 or 3 days and just say, hey, we're just checking on you. Is everything okay today? And that and now that they do that regularly with me, I'm actually going to do that with a few of my friends as well. Not stalking, but, just call some of your friends. Hey, is everything okay? I'm here if you want to talk. That can take 30 minutes or 30 seconds or 1 minute. It doesn't have to be a really long phone call. And I found that that's really, really helped me. And I'm passing that on as well. Because it's helped me, I'm actually passing that on. So that's great. And Jane says here, years ago I moved overseas and I didn't know anyone. Me too. It was a bit like lockdown, so I scheduled my week so I had a social interaction every day. Yeah, that's great advice. And I think, you know, in today's world, and especially if you're living in Melbourne, that social interaction does need to be on the phone rather than going down for a coffee or going to a shop to talk to somebody, because, you know, we can't do that so easily these days. So great advice, Jane.
Yeah, I do feel for the extroverts out there. Us introverts were kind of made for this pandemic, in a sense. We're quite happy being at home, but I wish there was a way that we could model our introvert behavior to make it a bit easier for those extroverts that are probably feeling a little bit stir crazy from this.
Yeah. And look, did anyone have any questions? You can send them to me privately if you want to, that you perhaps want us to answer now in regards to this, or...
Does anyone have any comments? Feel free to unmute yourself. Is that a word? Unmute? Demute?
Unmute. Yep. No, unmute.
To free yourself so that you may talk if you wish. No? Oh, Jessica.
Okay. Basically, how is the market is going on? Basically,
how's the market going at the moment?
This morning,
yeah,
some recruiter, they said, "Do you have a job for me? Just tell me."
At this point in time, no.
Reality is, I said, "Wow, this is a job for me."
At this point in time, it's incredibly quiet out there still.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate. We're doing the best we can. I did write an article, I think maybe not last week, the week before, which was an honest reflection on what I feel is happening within the industry right now. Yeah. And there's a few trends. I'll just repeat them quickly. There's a few trends that I noticed are going on right now. So the first is that we're probably going to see more freelance initially than permanent opportunities. Yeah. I suspect those freelance opportunities are going to be short-term project-based opportunities, and not particularly long projects, but it's going to be based on what businesses' budget is going to allow. I think many of those businesses are probably going to turn to their existing network of people first, many of which are available right now, before they go to an external resource, because it means you're going to have to pay more. And understandably, businesses probably don't want to do that right now. When it does get to permanent, which I suspect is still going to be a little while off yet, I think they're going to be wanting to see people that have got skills that go across multiple areas. I think they're going to be looking a lot more for unicorns. So the key advice I keep giving people at the moment is become a unicorn, do a skill audit, look at what gaps exist at the moment, reflect that upon what kind of jobs might be coming up to determine what it is that isn't there for you, and begin to upskill now, because the time that you invest in doing that now will pay off as those jobs start to come through more. But the reality is, particularly in Melbourne, where there's a lot of unrest right now, that it's probably going to be a little while off yet before we start to see a good steady flow of jobs coming through. That's just the reality of it at the moment.
And Jessica had a good point here that she's had a few freelance jobs and then they've been cancelled.
Yeah.
I've noticed that as well, where clients have asked for something and then we find somebody and then they turn around and say, oh no, we're not going to go ahead with that right now.
The lockdown has definitely had an impact. I've noticed it across a few different businesses. I work in a couple of businesses and I've noticed it across all of them. So, you know, it feels a little bit more intense this time, which is why we felt that this topic was really beneficial.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's too easy to become overwhelmed with, you know, all the negativity that and scariness that might come with this, when we really need to be able to tap into remaining productive and focused, which is motivation, really.
Yeah, basically that's saying upscaling. As soon as I lost my job, basically I did just subscribe to Linda, and more than a lot of courses I have done, and upskilling like animation and things and video editing. So a lot of things I am keep working on, because I'm kind of an addicted person to learning all the time. Anything comes, I just jumps on. But
that's what I mean by doing things that are meaningful. You know, those courses and upskilling is meaningful for you, because not only is it making you more employable as opportunities start to come in, it's actually living to your value of wanting to learn more, isn't it?
Yes.
And to be the best you can be. That kind of sounds like another value that I'm hearing there. Yeah. And so that plays to that. So it makes it even more meaningful to make sure that you invest in that time.
Mm. And even investing in time in things that you just like. Maybe it doesn't relate back to a career or a specific job. Maybe you're just spending more time doing something that you really enjoy. That can also have a positive impact.
Yeah, like reading or listening to music or doing interpretive dance.
I think it's more getting difficult for the senior people, because one of my friend, art director in MNC Sachi, he also just laid off last week. He was 45. He was literally started crying. I said, come on, guys, this is what's happening.
It is a challenge for particularly people who are in an older demographic. I can say that because I am in that demographic. But yeah, I recognize that for older demographic, it can be a frightening time, because there is that, particularly within the creative industry. I with all due respect, I do tend to believe creative industry can often be slightly ageist, and associate good design with young, fresh design or young, fresh designers. And we know that that's not necessarily the case, but that is outside of our control, going back to what I said earlier. And so we can't do anything to control that other than how we choose to respond to it and be with it. Yeah. I'm getting very meta in that sense. But
all you guys are professional or art? What exactly you are? Because we don't know each other.
What's that? Sorry?
I mean, all of guys, are you, because you are your basically recruiter, all other guys who's in the meeting, what they are professionals, different profession? Or
it might be a good idea to follow our Facebook group. Have we got that link on? And then you can have those conversations in the Facebook group.
If you go to the Facebook group, you'll find in Facebook there is the Creative Recruiters Virtual Meetup group. If you go there, you'll find all of our past virtual catch-ups, plus additional notes on top of that. And because unlike Vanessa, I am a social media addict, you will generally get a response from me within 24 hours.
Oh, that's good.
That's a good
kidding. You get a response from me within 4 hours, most likely. So
yeah, you replied. That's what I liked about it, because some recruiter just ignores, what's happening.
Yeah. But Rajiv, that's a good way for you to interact with other people and other creatives that are following creative recruiters.
So, yeah, it's why we set that up, is that to continue this work in that space. Yeah.
Great.
Has anyone else got any questions or comments or thoughts?
Sylvian?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I think it's amazing that a recruiter is doing what you guys are doing. And I really admire that. I think that's really fantastic that you're trying to get the community to speak up and to talk about lots of various situations. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'll put the check in the mail.
For you.
Thank you so much. But I mean, Lawrence does have a qualified background in this.
Well, I don't know if you guys realize, but I'm actually a therapist on the side. So I do therapy. It's why I'm only in the office 3 days a week, is because I'm doing therapy on the other days.
Yeah.
So, on yourself or
on a wide range of people, and it gets very scary.
I'm kidding.
So I mean, that is one reason why we do this, because we've got that excellent resource with Lawrence. But the other reason that we're doing this is because, when this all happened and our jobs literally disappeared, we actually sat down and said, what can we do? We can't find people jobs. What can we do to help people in this situation, rather than just sitting back and not doing anything? We just wanted we can't give jobs, so we want to give our resources, our knowledge.
This group is literally us living our values. We want to be transparent. We want to be supportive. We want to be accessible. And this is literally living that values, because we feel it's important to do that during these really challenging times. We're all human beings trying to do the best we can. The more we can support each other, the better.
But thank you so much, Sylvian. That is really appreciated.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're most welcome. Now, on that note, have you heard of Bauer Media?
Yes.
I did see in the news that Bauer had let go of a lot of publications. Which
in Melbourne or in Sydney?
Both. This is, I think, the second round. They had some a few months back. They had let go of quite a few publications again. So again, it's really sad. I know some really talented people in a bar. I don't know if they're there or not. I should probably give them a call to say hello. But you know, it's definitely a sign of the reality is that we don't know yet how bad or how deep this recession is. Hopefully it's not as bad as what people are making out. But while there are these stimulus packages in place, it's very hard for us to know that.
I think it's all going to go online. All the magazines are all going to be online. There'll be nothing printed anymore.
Look, it is what it is. And the more we can kind of get out of our own heads worrying about it, the more we can focus on what we can do that's going to provide a career moving forward. You know, whatever you put your energy focusing on is what you're going to get. And, you know, I think for a lot of people that are exploring that whole notion of being able to pivot their business or pivot what they do are the ones that are really going to be able to step into whatever this new normal is with a bit more confidence and ease.
Yeah. That's why you limit the news to 30 minutes. You limit your social media to 30 minutes. Then you focus on positive things.
It really does help. It really does help with the mental well-being. I find anyway. So yeah.
And to have lovely fur kids that you can cuddle up to, because I can see Whitney on the bed there or the couch there. It's you know, definitely doing those simple things that bring a bit of pleasure and gratitude into your life are well worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, we might wrap this up. But as you can see on your screen, you've got Lawrence's email address, my email address, and also Creative Recruiters. There, you know, the blog on Creative Recruiters has over 200 blogs on there. If there was something that you wanted to know or a question to ask, I bet you could find a blog on it. So that's also a really great resource to go to. And as Lawrence mentioned before, our Facebook.
Should I quickly mention what I think our next topic is going to be?
Yes.
So our next topic, I'm hoping, I'm just confirming it now, we're going to have a guest speaker, and the topic is going to be all about stepping into UX if you're a print person. I reckon that's a really good topic. I was really happy with that one.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
I have.
Glad you're great.
I'm the print base, so UI and UX. This is what I read all the time.
Yep, it's popping up in all the ads I'm seeing. So this is something that I think all of us need to get our head around. So I'm hoping that we'll confirm that one in the next little bit, and I reckon that will be a really important one for people to check out.
Yeah, but at this stage, we're just doing every second week. So,
2 weeks' time.
Yeah, in 2 weeks' time. All right, fantastic. Right. Everybody's looking forward to that one. That's great.
I'm looking forward to that one. I think it's going to be fascinating.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no other questions, then we'll sign off for the day, and everybody have an awesome day, awesome rest of the day, and I hope you take something with you from this webinar. That's all we want. Just take one thing that is going to make a difference, and then this is all worth it.
Excellent.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Take care, guys. See you soon.
Bye.